West Ham wish to hire a director of football this summer, according to Sean Whetstone of 6'2", a really good website for West Ham fans. And Sean is a really good source when it comes to West Ham news. But last week he did a tweet. That's how old this is. Last week Sean did a tweet. But there's just been so much football matches at the minute and news and rumours surrounding West Ham. I mean, today we're being linked to Fulham manager Marco Silva. Apparently he's got a $6 million release clause and West Ham are going to trigger it in the summer if we get rid of David Moyes. I mean, what? Where's that come from? But anyway, that's how much stuff there is. So I'm a little bit late to it, but I've got a strong opinion. So last week, Sean did a tweet saying that West Ham were going to recruit a director of football, and he didn't know what that meant for the futures of David Moyes and Rob Newman. Now, obviously, David Moyes has spoken out about a director of football in the past. Not necessarily the role per se, but somebody else being in charge of transfers. He wants control. He wants to decide which players West Ham buy, and he doesn't agree with somebody else doing it, whether that be David Sullivan or a director of football. Obviously, Rob Newman is head of recruitment at West Ham at the moment, so bringing in a director of football to oversee the transfer strategy would certainly put those two jobs in jeopardy, or their beliefs in jeopardy, be undermining them almost. So what are they going to do? What does that mean for them? So Sean stated he didn't know what that meant for those two, but West Ham wanted to hire a director of football. He followed it up earlier this week, just confirming what he had said last week, that West Ham are actively trying to bring in a director of football, and he didn't know what that meant for Mark Noble's job as sporting director. Now, I've got quite a strong feeling about this, and I'm going to be defending Rob Newman. But before we talk about what could happen, here's where we stand right now if we bring in a director of football. We would have that new person, I would assume, in charge of the transfer strategy at West Ham. We've got a control freak of a manager that doesn't want interference. Now, whether you believe all the transfers are his or they're not all his, etc. at the minute, I think it's a bit of both. I think there's some players we've brought to this club that's got his fingerprints all over it, such as Nathan Gerd. And I think there's some players we've brought in, I'm not sure David Moyes knows too much about it, like Lucas Paqueta. It's all about opinions. We'll never know the truth. It's up to you for you to make up your own mind. You seek out the evidence before you and decide what you believe. But regardless, Moyes has spoken out about somebody else being in charge of transfers. He doesn't like it and he doesn't agree with it. So we've got director of football, a control freak of a manager. We've now got Rob Newman, head of recruitment. Can he still do that job of bringing a director of football? I would argue technically he could. He would just have a different line manager. He perhaps wouldn't be involved in negotiations anymore. But in terms of identifying talent, in terms of managing the scouts, he could still do that. He would just have a new boss, if you like. Then you've got Mark Noble, who's sporting director. Now, if you were to look up the role of a sporting director, it's pretty much copy and paste for a role of a director of football. They're just called different things going by each club in countries as well. Then you can add in technical director at Man United. It's a technical director. That's what Darren Fletcher does. It's similar roles, so it can change club by club depending on the infrastructure. So for example, I remember reading something about Blackburn Rovers. The director of football or sporting director or technical director at Blackburn, they actually got involved in the medical department just because they didn't have a head of medical. They couldn't afford one, so unfortunately the guy at the top is in charge of the medical team as well. So it differs from club to club. But certainly Mark Noble's role would be getting questioned here, because remember at the very end of the January transfer window, there was a rumour, and it was a strong rumour from ex-West Ham employee at the time, that Mark Noble offered to resign. And then it sort of had to get sort of clarified. Actually, there's been discussions have taken place and he's going to remain. But for him to do that 3 weeks into the job, something must have gone seriously wrong. And at the time, we had just signed Danny Ings, and the person that we didn't sign or we missed out on was Moffey. So again, you're having to put two and two together. You're going to have to make up your own minds here. My guess, and it is just a guess, would be that Noble was trying to get involved in recruitment and didn't get the player that he wanted. Instead, we went with Danny Ings, who somebody else at the club had selected. And Mark Noble was on Ben Foster's podcast. And on there, he spoke about being involved in player recruitment meetings, etc. So Noble is definitely involved in these assessments of potential signings. Would he still be involved with bringing in a director of football? I don't know. We'd have to wait and see. Then we've got the fifth one. I mean, if that wasn't enough, that's 4 people. There's a fifth one. David Sullivan. Has he taken a backseat? Apparently he has. But why are we bringing in a director of football then? If he's so hands off, why is he bringing in somebody else? Why is he bringing in another person? That would give us 5 people who all have strong beliefs, if you want to call it that, in how to go about a transfer strategy at West Ham United. That's a lot of people. That old saying, isn't it? Too many chefs spoil the broth. And I just do not trust this club enough, in particular the 5th one. I do not trust David Sullivan enough to get this right. Now, there's one person that I reckon we're going to get linked to very, very soon as a director of football. We'll mention him at the end of the video. And if it was him, I'd have a lot of optimism. But, and it's a big but, well actually, it's announced but it's spelled Sullivan. That's how it's spelled. I just do not trust him an inch. I do not trust him whatsoever to get this right, the idea of it, the application of it. And I struggle to get it. Why are we bringing in a director of football? Now, I understand the modern infrastructure of a football club. I get it. In an ideal world, we'd already have one. I just don't trust this club whatsoever to get this right. Anyway, before we talk about Rob Newman, just want to point in the direction of our Patreon. It's the last time I'm going to mention it this month, I think. I might mention it once more next week. But the reason is because we're giving you a trial. If you join up as a mild addict, it costs you £5.50. You go on right now and pay for it right now. It'll cost you £5.50. But you get loads more video content. I've just done a podcast with Anton Ferdinand where we talk about Man United, the Conference League, etc. There's loads of video content, you know it. Go over there, patreon.com/HammersChat. The link's in the description below. But what's different this month is if come the end of May, you don't like it, you think that wasn't worth £5.50, let us know and I'll give you your £5.50 back. It's as simple as that. Try it. If you like it, stick around in June, going into next season, please. We're doing our best, but if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back. We're confident that you will like it. There's a lot of content over there. Link in description, patreon.com/HammersChat. Now, one of the reasons, when I seen this, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that, well, the Sullivan factor is there. There's also the Rob Newman factor. This might be unpopular, I don't know, but I don't think he's done a bad job. I don't think has he spent a lot of money? Yes. Are we in a poor position? Yes. Have we had a poor season? Yes. But is it Rob Newman's fault? I'm not too sure. If we look at the signings that we made, now Areola, first of all, was at West Ham before Rob Newman was here. I'm aware we purchased him under Rob Newman. I don't think it's as clean cut as that, though. There would have been, well, we had a sort of an option to buy on him anyway before Rob Newman came in. But when you look at the rest of them, I think Agurd's a top player. I do. He's error prone. He's had a lot of bad games. I say a lot. He's had a few bad games for West Ham, but he's also had more good games. And when he's good, he's capable of being a Rolls Royce of a centre back. He's capable of being the best player on the pitch. 9 out of 10. Unfortunately, he's also capable of a 3 out of 10 now and again. But he's only had 6 months. This is technically, what's this, 5 months? This is technically his January of a normal season. But because he got injured and had the World Cup, we didn't really see him until January time. So in a normal season, we're only halfway through the season under Agurd at this point. And I think from what we're seeing so far in limited time, I'm really pleased with the signing. I think that's a good signing. Emerson, I'm not being keen on, but I think it's actually worked out better than I thought. But my standards were pretty low. I think Paqueta is a fantastic signing, an unbelievable player. I think Downs, we got what we bought from playing Downs. One of the best midfielders in the Championship, a defensive midfielder that we can rely on. I think we got that. Again, that's fine. For $9 million, I think that's a decent enough signing. It's squad depth. By the looks of it and sounds of it, he's okay playing this role. It's good. Cornet has been a disaster, but there's been a lot of injuries there as well. Scamacca, now that's the big one, isn't it? That's the big one. The expensive signing, it's not quite worked out. However, Rob Newman's job is to identify talent and bring talent to this football club. At the end of last season, start of this season, David Moyes and Mark Noble both spoke about transitioning, about how West Ham are going to change their style of play this season. Rob Newman's job in the summer was to go buy players that allows us to do that change this season. As far as I'm concerned, he's done it. Paqueta, Scamacca and Agurd are all different to what we had before. They all play better in a possession-based side. Agurd is a really good ball-playing centre-back. We know what Paqueta can do. And Scamacca has had good games for West Ham. He's not been a complete flop. He's been better than Sebastian Haller. He's already had more influence at West Ham under Moyes than what Sebastian Haller had. And I think he would play better in a team that was playing the way that we were meant to play this season, if that makes sense. I think the failure of the transfer window, if you class the summer transfer window as a failure, I don't think it's down to the recruitment. I think it's down to the manager, to not integrating them correctly, to not being able to change that style of play. I think if there was another 2 months of this season, I think we'd have different opinions about a lot of the summer signings. We're just running out of time, essentially. But I don't think the summer's been a bad one. I think actually it's been fine. Has it been £180 million worth? Not really. But do you know something? We've seen at West Ham where we've, under Pellegrini, spent 100 million and nothing to show for it at the end of it, where everything went wrong. But not everything. You know, Fabianski's turned out really good and Fornals has had his moments, hasn't he? But by and large, you didn't really feel you got better. You didn't really feel you got value for money. I think we've done all right. I actually think last summer's window's been decent, and I don't like judging players in their first season at a football club if they've come from outside the Premier League. So for Scamacca, for Paqueta, for Aguerd, I'm sort of willing to wait till next season to properly judge them. And I don't think one summer, for a head of recruitment in his first job at this role, I don't think one summer's enough. He's had 2 January transfer windows as well, so he's had 3 transfer windows, but I just don't think giving him a summer and then before the following summer judging him, I don't think that's a fair crack of the whip. I think you've got to give somebody longer than that. And there's the other thing, which is the players that we haven't signed, that Rob Newman identified. Rob Newman's job is to identify talent. He identified Alvarez, which Moyes has told us I turned him down. We know we bid for Darwin Núñez. Well, it turns out he's a pretty good player. The other Núñez, the one that went to Wolves, he turns out to be a pretty bloody good player as well. Luis Diaz, who's also gone to Liverpool, has turned out to be a good player. So in terms of identifying talent, Rob Newman's good at it. It's, first of all, getting them to West Ham, and second of all, getting them into the starting 11 and performing. That's the 2 other problems. The one thing I will say, which is going to counter my own argument here, is I don't think it's difficult to identify that lot as signings for a Premier League club. It's not like he was pulling out. Do you know Casiejo? We were linked to him before Rob Newman went to Brighton for, was it 5 million or something in the end? Now that's talent spotting. That's the good stuff. But I think if you're going to go to the Portuguese league and pick out the best striker and the best winger, it doesn't really take a talent to do that. I think you could do that. I'm not even kidding. I think people watching this video is capable of doing that, to go to one of the better leagues in European football and pick out the best players and say, hey, here's someone we should bring in. They're quite good at football. Yeah, you'd be proven correct. But it's not really a difficult thing to do. But that is Rob Newman's job, to go identify it. And I just think he deserves another summer to go at it. But then that brings on to the next question, which is why now? Why are we looking at bringing in a director of football? What is it, 3 weeks till the season finishes? As soon as that season's finished, we need to be planning for next season. We need to bringing in the players ASAP. We don't have time, excuse my French, to piss around waiting for a new director of football. We had this 2 summers ago when we knew Rob Newman was coming, but Man City put him on gardening leave till September. He might have been on the phone to David Moyes suggesting players that he could go and buy, but he officially couldn't start his role. We're away to do sort of a similar thing now, which is bring somebody in ahead of the summer transfer window, and he's got about 2 weeks to come in, discuss things with David Moyes, etc., get his budget, and then go out there and sign talent. Now, what I would argue is a really good director of football should come with a little black book. That's essentially what you are hiring. When you hire a director of football, you're not just hiring him and his skills. You're hiring his network, his contacts, his knowledge, stuff that you can't really demonstrate numerically. His salary will have a number to it, his years of experience will have a number to it, but in terms of his little black book, all that contacts he's got, that's the priceless stuff. That's what you're bringing in. Now there is one person, I'm just checking my notes here because I did put, I've done everything bar this one. That's good. There is one person that springs to mind that when I saw it, I thought, I've got a funny feeling I know who's going to be linked to West Ham very, very soon, and that's Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell's director of football at Monaco. He's leaving Monaco at the end of this season. It's not a secret. It's very public. But what is also very public is Mark Noble knows him. Mark Noble's friends with him. Mark Noble has gone to Monaco to learn from Paul Mitchell. And that's where I think, in terms of what he's done in France, I don't know. I'm not going to say he's a good director of football or anything. I don't know enough. But he's got the experience. He's done a similar role. He's free in the summer, and Mark Noble gets on with him well. There's a lot of things starting to tick a lot of boxes, thinking, all right, this might be something. Like I said, I've not seen, just to be clear, I've not seen Mitchell linked to this role. I haven't seen anywhere say that Paul Mitchell is the director of football West Ham. I haven't seen it. I am giving my opinion and a prediction that we are going to get linked to him. And I wouldn't be surprised this time next week, his name's getting touted for this new vacancy that we finally found ourselves with. So, director of football with West Ham. In principle, I would love it. I wanted it years ago because I don't want Sullivan in charge of anything. I don't want him in charge of transfers. I don't want David Moyes. Gons has always said Moyes appointed Rob Newman. I've always been a bit suspicious by it, but it turns out it looks like it's true. I hate it. I absolutely hate that. There should be an order at West Ham where people are certain people's bosses. We know how it works. Sullivan's a chief. Under Sullivan, you've got Karen Brady. Underneath Karen Brady, you'll have all these other people. Director of football should sit there, just under Karen Brady. Director of football should be responsible for hiring and firing the manager or the sporting director. I don't know how the roles will get split, but between them, they're in charge of hiring and firing the manager. And Rob Newman, that's why when he got that job title as head of recruitment, it was a little bit. It put him in his place, doesn't it? It's sort of, no, that's your job is to identify talent, to manage his scouts, and that is it. Thank you very much. And from what I believe, Newman's been heavily involved in the negotiations. And the one good thing that we got out of the Scamacca deal is Scamacca's agency recorded almost like a vlog of the transfer, which is very unusual. Rob Newman's prominent in all of it. In Italy, when they're doing everything in Italy, the contract, etc., Rob Newman's there. So he's been very hands-on with some of the transfers, bringing them over to West Ham, which is good. So in that regards, perhaps Rob Newman can continue the role he has been doing. He'll just, like I said, he'll just have a new line manager. Perhaps we'll go down the route of something that Liverpool do, which is essentially a transfer committee. Liverpool have a transfer committee, not one guy in charge of it. They sit round, obviously Klopp's in there. I don't know who's in it, but let's just say there's 10 people in that transfer committee where they identify what the team needs, and then someone's responsible for bringing in options, someone else is responsible for negotiations. And together as a team, they're able to do the transfer strategy. Is that the direction West Ham are heading? I don't know. But what I do know is I just cannot trust us. I just don't trust David Sullivan to get this right. There's been nothing to suggest he will do this. The Rob Newman thing, like I said, I think he's done all right. But Sullivan clearly doesn't think Newman's done a good job. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing this. So he's got that wrong. And then the Pellegrini Mario Huselos thing was just an absolute shambles. I still remember the story that when we sacked Pellegrini, we sacked Mario Huselos as well as Juan Pellegrini, Mario Huselos Jr. When they all got sacked, they literally took everything with them because their scouting was done on paper. Their scouting was done like this. So when they sacked Huselos went, right, cheers lads, we're off. He owned everything. All that scouting that we had done under Pellegrini, it was all done via Huselos, and everything was recorded on paper. They didn't upload anything. There was nothing digital. They kept it all because they're not stupid, because they knew the day comes we get sacked, we're walking out of here with everything that we've got. So West Ham's recruitment team was stripped bare. We had nothing. We had no scouts. We had no analysis team. No scout reports. Nothing at all. So director of football would be a good idea. But I mean, there is obviously the possibility that it's Kretinsky that's insisting on it and hiring it. I don't know. But when I saw that tweet from Sean Whetstone, I'm not going to lie, I should have got excited. But instead of getting excited, instead of thinking this is the answer, I had more questions and I had nothing but worry because I just don't trust him. Anyway, there you go. A little bit of a ranty video, actually. I'm worried. Bringing in a director of football should be an exciting thing at West Ham. It should be. I just can't do it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, though, please do drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. Like I said, if you want to try out Patreon, go to patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Links in description. Mild Addict, the middle tier. Join that one. Don't like it, we'll give you your money back. I'll catch you in a bit.